Okay, next issue is to that point, zoning, and what could be better about zoning. Um, right now, I think the biggest difficulty that we all have with zoning and this data center issue in particular is that um, Pennsylvania has a ton of these small municipalities. Every county is divided up into small municipalities that has local control over their zoning and all this stuff. And that isn't necessarily always a bad thing. But the laws that dictate this from the state, I believe, go back to 1968 or 1963. I need to clarify that. But either way, we're talking from the 60s. And my goodness, think of all the things that have changed in our economy and in the way that we do business since the 60s. So on a state level, there's a lot of movement towards bills that are being passed as to how to handle these data centers or whatever. But in reality, we need to be looking at how we are asking all of our municipalities or all of our citizens to treat zoning in their particular areas. And in my mind, I think that one thing that we should be looking at, or at least be debating, is it worthwhile to go to a county-wide zoning? Because I know in Bloomsburg, anything that we pass ordinance-wise needs to get approved by the county anyway. And this would solve all of our problems to a large degree, because when I was at North Center Township, one of the concerns that they had when developing their overlay was that they did not have a large enough area in what they termed their industrial area to provide for these types of facilities. So they're looking at agricultural land, and people don't want their agricultural land turned into industrial uses. Catawissa, they were saying last night as well, there is not a real ideal location for this, so they picked agricultural land that was as far away out of town as they could get, kind of up the cliff from the river. And that was, where they determined that would be best to do. Bloomsburg, we have someone who put in an application that we're going to have to deal with this sort of curative amendment issue. Just on Monday, we passed our moratorium on new applications, so that froze everything, and we're going to be working on, this ordinance. I would like to take a lot from this, but either way, we would have to find a place in Bloomsburg that we would say this is an overlay. We have an overlay, just for reference, for the airport because of the takeoff and landing. There are things that are not allowed in that overlay district because of the planes coming in and out for the airport. So overlay districts are a common thing. What that overlay district will say is that we're going to lay this over areas that might already be zoned for something else. And what we have is industrial. We have MX3, we have MX2. Those just have different definitions of what sort of activities can take place in those areas. But for instance, like the Bloomsburg Fair is in MX3. Bloomsburg University is in institutional educational. There are areas that would be large enough acreage-wise in both of those areas to say, yeah, you could fit some type of facility like this. So that's where you could do an overlay. However, if you looked at the whole county, as far as if every possible use had to fit somewhere in Columbia County, I think what we would really be looking at is along the Route 80 or the Route 11 corridor, where we already have a lot of our heavy industrial uses. Bloom Carpet, Sekasui, Autoneum, we have industrial places. The whole complex there with Kubota and Thompson Mailing, those places out along the highway. And that would take a lot of the pressure off those of us who live in these more small rural communities that I don't think that all of us should have to find a place to put a data center. That's ridiculous. None of us want a data center there. And honestly, people that are along Route 11 probably don't want one there either. But if you had to look at a larger area and say, this is where it makes sense, that's what I think that we should be looking at. And since the county has to prove it anyway, that gives us all, as citizens of Columbia County, the ability to come and work with our commissioners to be able to find areas that keep it out of some of our more protected areas and would be able to find. Because look, the reality is we're not going to get a data center in every little community. They are trying really hard to find the communities that it's going to be the easiest to move into, and that's what they're going to try to angle, whether it's because it's close to the power plant or high, tension lines or whatever it might be that they think will be beneficial to their business. We already have some of those areas that are set up for such. So I think that the state really needs to look into uh, changing the way that we make every particular area look in at their zoning. So as a representative, that would be something that I would be looking for in particular.